Hello.
Who would be a Wolves fan, eh?
On goes ball. People might yet win it here for Wolves. Flash in the shot. What a goal! Molineux in all its magnificence.
Hello and welcome to Series 5, Episode 5 of Stories from the Pack, brought to you by Wolves Fancast. I'm Ryan Hooper, and for this episode, I'm delighted to be joined by BBC journalist Nick Southall. Nick, how you doing?
Not too bad, Ryan. Not too bad. Long time no see. I guess we probably have to reveal that we know each other from a long time ago. Probably a time when you had hair, just about, and that was at school as well. But yeah, so yeah, it's been a long time, hasn't it?
It has, and it's funny you say that because I think actually we're up to maybe the fourth or fifth ex-Norvico's guest on the show. Actually,
Right.
So there is a few of us.
Haven't had our old headmaster, Sir Jeff Hampton, on, have you?
No, I haven't. No, so it's not a prerequisite where I check people's education history. But as far as I'm aware, there's at least 4 or 5 ex-students. And before we go into the segue, so Norvicote School, I won't alienate people too much. That's no longer there. But I was thinking about this earlier, Nick, because I remember when you were at school, as we're piecing it all together, we were school friends. Your name was on a shield for a sporting achievement. Do you recall this? And when the school got demolished, did they ever contact you to kind of put it into your possession?
No, I can't even remember. It must have been cricket. It wouldn't have been football.
Yeah, I've got a feeling in reception there was a shield and that your name was on there for some sort of sporting achievement. And I was thinking, now the school is no longer. Did they get in touch with you? But yeah, I'm sure there's
really
many
sad
stories.
To go, actually. Yeah. Okay. Can I just say? I mean, this is completely irrelevant to what we're going to talk about. But we've got a mutual friend in Andrew Harrison, or Harry, as we call him. And when he talked about a shield for sporting performances, the one thing that stood out to me was we were on the top field in Bushbury, and he did the discus, but he ended up throwing the discus behind everybody, going backwards rather than forwards. And our kind of sadistic PE teacher decided to measure it and put it on the PE board. So, yeah, I just wondered whether that may have been on one of the trophies as well, somewhere along the line.
Well, if he listens back to this was not a genuine tee-up. We've not put any notes. That is a natural segue we went into. I guess if we pick up from there, though, Nick. So, you know, from your sort of school days at Norvicote and then going on to university. So, could you perhaps give people a brief overview how you got into your current role as it is today? And certainly for those who are perhaps interested in going into a similar field. Sort of your journey so far to date, if you can, please, Nick.
Yeah, well, it all started right from actually going to watch Wolves games and going to Molineux and just getting kind of really carried away with the atmosphere. And like many people, you want to go on and play for Wolves. Well, if anybody see me play football, that was never going to happen. But I always thought, well, what's the next best thing? And I always used to listen to BBC Radio WM. And at the time, obviously, there was Tony Butler. There was Tim Beach, who went on to be my managing editor at 2 stations and still get on very well with Tim. And so that's where the hunger for it started. And then I did BA Honours in Media and Communication at UCE, which was University of Central England in Birmingham at Perry Barr. It's now Birmingham City University. And kind of started edging towards broadcast journalism. Did a postgraduate in broadcast journalism, and really moved into the news side of things, but always wanted to do kind of sport as well, predominantly football commentaries, and then the rest is history. Really, managed to get a chance to do AFC Telford United for BBC Radio Shropshire, because Shropshire only have Shrewsbury and Telford. And when I started covering them, they were getting crowds of 2,500, even in the National North. So when you compare that to, even some clubs in League Two weren't getting that kind of attendance, and ended up doing Telford for a long time, probably, 12, 13 years, and then got my break covering Shrewsbury Town, and that's I'm the main sports presenter now. So yeah, it's a bit of a long road really, but it's one which I think if you put your mind to it, it's definitely worth trying to tread. I think it's a lot harder now for people to get into the industry, because from a BBC point of view, but the license fee settlement last time meant that there's been lots of cuts, and there are still lots of cuts at the moment as well. So it's a very different beast to what it was before. But that said, there are still lots of youngsters that want to get into it. So I've always tried to do my best to put people in the right way, really, and just get a foot on the ladder.
Brilliant. This is time sensitive as a podcast, but at time of recording, a couple of weeks ago, an interesting character walked through the doors at Shrewsbury. Have you had the chance to interview the man with the cowboy boots, the rock and roll superstar that is Gareth Ainsworth?
Yeah, I have. And I want to play for him, let alone the players.
Yeah.
He's got the long flowing dark hair, cowboy boots, black leather jacket. He's got his own rock band as well. He just exudes confidence, energy, not arrogant, and I think he got burnt at QPR. Spent 10 years at Wickham, then went to QPR, who he used to play for, did well, kept them up. And then the next season, I don't think he was given a fair chance, and lots of things have been going on there, as we all know. And so, yeah, he's just he's a perfect fit for Shrewsbury. In fact, Shrewsbury and Telford will probably crop up a bit later on when we talk, because there are so many Wolves connections who I've kind of worked with in the past. So like Graham Turner, Andy Sinton, Paul Simpson, they've all been in management in Shropshire at some time or other. Rob Edwards, who cut his teeth as a manager at Telford and now at Luton. So, but yeah, plenty to talk about.
Brilliant. So we'll perhaps circle back on that in terms of the current. But if we perhaps go from the start in terms of your Wolves journey, primarily without the professional head and more of the personal aspect. So talk me through either your first Wolves match or your first memories of Molineux, because I'll caveat that with memories of Molineux, because sometimes first game and detail can be difficult. But what was your buy-in, and what was your first memories of Molineux?
Yeah, well, sorry for the washing machine, by the way, which is going on in the background. Great timing. My first memories were just the John Island stand, really, the red seats, if you remember.
Yeah.
And the overriding memory is how far away from the pitch it was.
Yes.
You got Andy Thompson bombing up and down the wing on the left hand side, and if they're playing from right to left, and he's quite small anyway, but just seem miles away. And we both had a mutual friend whose father was stadium manager for a long time at Molineux. And I remember one summer we went along, and they must have been digging up the pitch ready for the new season, but pre-season had already started, so there was nobody around, and we were just running around Molineux basically, and the players were warming up on the concrete on the car park, which is, I think they did quite a bit of when Graham Turner was manager.
Yeah.
So that always kind of sticks in my memory, though, that very rare and kind of fortunate chance just to be at Molineux when nobody else is, and have a proper look around. And But yeah, from a game point of view, I've tried to narrow it down. Now, I think my first game would have been 1987.
Okay.
And I think it was the 28th of December, and it was a win against Exeter. I'm pretty sure it was the Exeter game. And you got people like, I think Mark Venus played, Robbie Dennison, who is one of my early kind of Wolves heroes. So that's my early impression. And of course, that was at the time when the stand on the right, was it the right or left that was derelict? In fact,
It was so
both
yeah.
at
So
one stage.
yeah, that's right. So I suppose if you're sitting in the John Island as it was then, the Steeple to the right, the North Bank, as you say, was derelict, and also directly opposite, which was the Waterloo Road stand there, the Billy Wright, that was condemned as well, I believe, because around that time. So, as you say, a very different, image to perhaps fans that are aware from, of jumps on board in recent years, but those of that era will remember, as you say, the pitch distance, and that there was enough to have games prior to the kick-off there, in between the pitch you're so far away. But I guess really, like you say, when you're that age, it's not, you've got no comparison, have you really? So, we now know, looking back, how difficult an era it was. And that was evident by what you could see within the stadium. But at the time, it was just, I guess, your introduction and sort of being on that sacred ground and kind of having that behind the scenes look through, which would have been amazing, I guess, at that point.
Yeah, and I suppose like an appreciation of where Wolves have come from,
Yeah.
So that my first game would have been, I think, when they were in the old 4th division. I think it was Graham Turner's first year as manager, and then and I think they won the league and got promoted. So that was the start of the golden era under GT. And if you people picturing it now, the entrance was right on the road, wasn't it? And it was kind of like a railing and then a rickety wooden door, and you'd walk through it and you were kind of like next to the changing rooms, and it was just altogether very different. But I look back with fondness because I think that for many of the fans, the fans before us, growing up in the real golden era with Billy Wright and Ron Flowers, etc., it must have been such a kind of come down with what happened in the early 80s, and for it to get as serious as it did, but then to climb back up as they did under Graham Turner and the Bull and Thompson era was quite a magical time to actually get into following Wolves. So I'm actually quite grateful that that's the time when I started watching them.
Lovely. And in terms of kind of from those years, or bringing you up to date, any particular games that stand out, being memorable for one reason or the other that you could recall?
Yeah, well, I mean, these days I watch a lot of games on the TV, but because I'm working following Shrewsbury Town, it's hard to actually get to games in person. But so the game that stands out for me is back in the 1990s, mid-90s, and it was when John de Wolf scored a hat-trick against Port Vale. And obviously this character, John de Wolf, comes in and, looked like a wolf. He had all this flowing blonde hair and beard and just captured kind of, as a youngster, captured your imagination. Something very different to what we had before with, like Peter Shirtliff and Derek Mountfield.
A bit more exotic, yeah.
It's like a European player has come in and but he scored a hat-trick. He scored the winning goal from the penalty spot. And Vale had a good team then. I think they had, like, in defence, they would have had people like Neil Aspin, and I'm sure Martin Foyle would have been playing then. So yeah, that's the one that stands out for me because it was just so rare. I think it's only the second time that a Wolves centre half's done that. So yeah, John de Wolf.
Yeah, I mean, like you say, just iconic. I remember the sort of God, I remember him starting. He signed it, and fans will remember. I think he signed the same time as Don Goodman did, and it was just this sort of manna from heaven where actual John DeWolf, and there are iconic shots of him that I can visualise now. I'm going to say in the white away kit, but that wouldn't be right, would it? No, because we're playing Port Vale. But there's images.
They were in all. I think the
in
image
all
I
gold.
got is they were all gold. I think, yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, well, and Don Goodman as well. I mean, what a legend he is. So yeah, it was, and it was an absolute mud heap at Vale Park.
Mm.
You know, it was like a ploughed field. So it had all the ingredients. It was just brilliant.
And it's interesting. I mean, you know, kind of from that point of view, I mentioned Don Goodman will be familiar to many in the line of work that you are. I mentioned Graham Turner, and there's so many parallels, which is amazing about football. It marries everything together. So the next section we're going to look at is the guest five-a-side. I've really enjoyed doing this series. Yeah. I'm glad you like it.
I like this.
And what I'd love people to do as well is get in touch with your five-a-side team as well. And what I'm going to do from this series, I'm going to kind of put a tally together, see who's most featured and so forth. But no, that's kind of the idea. So, but if you haven't heard before, it is really as described. So we ask a guest to manage a Wolves five-a-side team, and the guest will pick 5 past or present players. Don't worry about formations, anything like that. 5 past or present players. And also, you have the option of choosing an assistant as well to help the team. Another question that I asked on the last episode: if you're managing this team, Nick, are you tracksuits? Are you suits?
Oh.
Are you polo neck? Are you round neck? Are you taking any inspiration from Gareth Ainsworth? What's your touchline look?
You've got to have the personality to carry off Gareth Ainsworth. I don't think I've got that. This isn't actually. This has cropped up recently. Somebody asked me this, and I think it's probably because of Gareth Ainsworth. There is a trend now, isn't there? Where, and look, I work for the BBC. So I'll whisper it, but there are many other men's shops available. But it seems like a lot of managers are buying from Reese at the moment. You know, and it's kind of like no label, and you've got your black kind of trainer shoes with your white rubber sole. But I think white. Let's go for an old Barry Fry shell suit. Let's go. Not quite the flat cap, not the flat cap that he used to wear as well.
Not the flat cap. Was it the Exeter manager that tried to bring that out?
Oh,
the Exeter?
Paul Tisdale.
Paul Tisdale. Yeah. Okay. So we'll move away from attire to selection. Do you want to take the floor really and run through your team that you've got for us?
Yeah. So I really enjoyed this because it just gave me a chance to go down memory lane. So there aren't too many kind of current players in it. I'm going with a fly goalkeeper.
Okay.
So I'm being a bit unconventional, but I just there's a couple of players I really wanted to get in. So I'll start off with the obvious ones, and that's from the forward line going back. So obviously Steve Ball. You know, at the end of the day, we were so lucky to have been able to watch him week in, week out, scoring the goals he did. And I've been watching a couple of his goals again in the last week or so, and just what a phenomenal goal scorer. You know, just brilliant. And then
Bull is in, yeah.
So he'd be my lone striker, and then I'd have 2 in behind him, Ruben Neves. I just for all his qualities on the field, I loved him so much for off the field as well. That the amount of people that I knew that kept saying, "Oh, I bumped into Neves in such and such a supermarket in Tetnall or Cotswold or Ford Houses or something like that," and just how he had time for supporters and how he bought into Wolverhampton life. That a true legend of the football club. A phenomenal player, and he's been back recently, hasn't he? And you can just see the love that everybody's got for him. So Ruben Neves, and this is where we start going slightly left field. I'm not going to say Steve Corica or anybody like that.
I'm waiting for him to come in, but he's not been selected today. No spoilers there.
He had some good games though, Steve Corica. I remember he scored a couple of. Didn't he score a couple of goals against Birmingham City one game? And
and I think Norwich away comes to mind, but you might be right with Birmingham as well. But yeah, he was the McGee's King Cladsy, I think he was labelled as, which I don't think helped him. But yeah.
Yeah, McGee's King Cladsy. I love that. Yeah. Well, my next one is Bakary Sakho.
Okay. Yes.
So I thought, I know he had an injury problem, but the one year he was top goal scorer. I just thought, again, and I was fortunate to meet him once, not in a work capacity, but through a friend. And again, it just struck me kind of how much Wolves meant to him. And in the environment we were in, he didn't have to do that. He wasn't kind of saying it for the sake of saying it. So that really struck a chord. But I just thought his quality on the ball, his ability to score goals, I think he brought a bit of a wow factor when he came in. And I think he adapted really well to the Championship as well, which wouldn't have been too easy when he did arrive. But yeah, I think Bakary Sakho, I'm sure you probably won't have many people saying him really, but he's just somebody that for a short amount of time, I thought had a big impact.
Yeah, just a real explosive player. I'm going to just say for the listeners, my daughter's singing in the background if you can hear her. So, but yeah, so we got Bully, we got Neves, and we got Sakho. But no, you're right. I mean, when you look back at someone like Sakho, he was unplayable at times, and he was one of those that would get you off your feet, and that alone is always worth it. So, we got Bully, we got Neves, Sakho, and who's up next?
So. This is where we go even more left field. So I'm going two defenders. And this player I really, really loved. I just thought that he wore his heart on the sleeve. I thought he's a very disciplined defender. And it's Ludovic Polet. And again, another player I don't think you're going to get many votes for. Just because
I don't know. I mean, an absolute warrior, at that time.
I think he was player of the year for one of the seasons.
Yeah. You're right.
I think he was unlucky because he played for Colin Lee and then Dave Jones came in. Under Colin Lee, he was ever present and he had a really fantastic season. Again, I've got a feeling that he may have had an injury at some point, which may have counted a bit against him, and then fell out of favour when Dave Jones came in, and that was the end of his time at Wolves. But I just thought that he was so good in the air, such an athlete in defence as well, that he was somebody that I just kind of love to watch as a defender, really. And for a Frenchman coming in, he was playing at Le Havre, and it was because there were during the McGee era and then Colin Lee, there were a lot of players in and out, weren't there? And some real flops and some real unique names from lots of different countries, and you thought, wow, well, it kept you on your toes. It was interesting at the very least. But I thought that was one of the signings that worked really well. So Ludo Polet.
Polet, brilliant. And so who's fly keeper then in the side? Defender again, you say?
Yeah, and I hopefully quite a few will go for this name, but I mean it's tinged with sadness because sadly he's no longer with us. But it's Dean Richards. I thought again he was an athlete. the way he read the game. He was good with the ball at his feet. He was a strong, no-nonsense defender. He was linked, wasn't he? I think with Man United at one stage and Arsenal. There were rumours because he was playing so well for Wolves, and then he had a car accident, which was probably a bit more of an issue for him than they originally thought with the kind of injuries he got. And then he went to Southampton after Wolves.
So he went to Southampton with Deja, and then he got this move to Tottenham, didn't he?
Yes,
I mean, one of my favourite players. He has been in this list before from other guests because arguably, not even arguably, I do think he'd be someone who would get in the side now. I mean, he was, as you say, at that point when he came in from Bradford, I wasn't used to defenders playing the ball out from the back. And I think a lot of fans were like, oh, okay, so he doesn't just head it, he doesn't just kick it, he actually carries the ball. And that's with the greatest respect for those before him. But he was such a talented defender, wasn't he? And I think he was a graceful defender, I guess is how you put it.
Yeah. I think he lived locally to me and you at one stage as well. I seem to remember one of our former teachers knew him very well, but I can't remember exactly where it was, but and just a real tragedy when the news came through that he'd passed away. Never met him in person, but I just thought when you look back at, I mean, they've had some good defenders like Lescott and those kind of people, but just Richards, I just thought was awesome.
Brilliant. What a team. And have you thought of anybody in Wolves folklore history perhaps who would help you along with the side to keep these 5 players in check?
Well, I would. There are 2 people, but I'll leave the one I have picked. I'll tell you that in a second. There's Ron Flowers, who I was very I'm fortunate to be friends with Glenn, his son, and Harry, his grandson. Harry's, I think he's still at Southport at the moment. And they asked me to record Ron's life story. So got to know the family well and went round the house a lot and did a lot of recordings with Ron. And you know, we forget that he was a manager for a short period of time. But the things he talked about from the managers that he played under, of course, Stan Cullis and those kind of people. And I just thought, actually, I mean, he's such a nice bloke. Maybe you needed to have a bit of a harder edge as a manager. But I thought that he was such an impressive person and such a Wolves legend that surely there's got to be a place for Ron Flowers somewhere there. But the person I've gone for is somebody that I think actually got treated badly at Wolves, was Graham Taylor. Coming back into club management after what happened with England. Had a brilliant season in the league, and we missed out because of Bolton. That FA Cup game, which I can't remember why I couldn't go, but my brother went to it, and me and my dad were parked up outside Molineux next to West Park, and we could hear the roar with the windows down, and we were listening to WM's commentary, and then what all had missed, and that kind of thing, and we won, and I just thought that. Okay, the season after for Graham Taylor wasn't great. I think it was about 4 wins in 16, but I thought the fans got him out, and I thought he deserved. I thought it was a real shame that somebody like that was treated in that way, and I think that the club bowed down to fan pressure on that occasion. And since you read some of his memories of being at Wolves, and he said that was one of I think his lowest feeling in football was at Wolves, just with how it all ended so badly. still to this day, a couple of people I speak to, and they share the same. I just thought it was terrible how Graham Taylor was treated, and such a great coach, great manager, but great coach as well. So I'd love to have Graham Taylor saying, "Do I not like that next to me on the touchline?"
and as well for Graham Taylor, many will rightly point out he started so many foundations with the academy, for example, at the time.
Yeah.
Did a lot of work in trying to get a permanent training ground home at the time for the club, and also I think he then went on to Watford. Well, went back to Watford, didn't he, and taste success there as well. And yeah, perhaps it was like you said, the boardroom could have maybe held their nerve, because by all accounts, I mean, prior and post-war was a great career. And as you'll know, people in the game will say, what a top man as well he was. So, so fantastic. So that's your five-a-side team. I think it'll do okay on a Tuesday night at goals. I think there's some good characters there in your team, and I think you've got a good manager alongside to coach you on the way. I guess before we close as well, been trying to get Nick on for a while, but as part of his job, he's up and down the country, as he's alluded to, and also outside of the country as well. And perhaps when we'll have a little bit more time in the future, I'd love to know a little bit more, because I'm intrigued. Your season, when does it start? Because you get involved with TNS, don't you, in terms of qualifiers and so forth. And I'd just love to kind of get a little bit of a glimpse of kind of any recent trips that kind of come to mind with where your job takes you, and the kind of also the logistics and the challenges of that, what you've experienced so far this season.
Well, the challenges at the moment are that we've got to work out a way of getting to a club called NK Celje, who are in Slovenia, and trying to get a direct flight there is proving impossible. So, and also the kind of technicals of dealing with clubs in Europe who don't have the same kind of ISDN lines, which is what we use to connect to do games, which turn into IP more and more now. It's proving very difficult as well, and a bit of you turn up at your point and you think, actually, we've travelled all this way. Are we going to get on air? So, that's a bit of a kind of heart in mouth moment. But yeah, I mean, we cover the New Saints because they are in Oswestry, which is in our patch, the north part of our patch, but play in the Welsh Premier. And actually, they play some really good football. I think kind of memories of I've covered them predominantly in European qualifiers now for the last 12 years. And the one that always stands out to me was Anderlecht, when a young Romelu Lukaku came on as a 17-year-old to score a couple of goals at the end. But I'd done all my research on the players on the 1 to 11. So this Lukaku is like, well, I didn't know anything about him, and nobody else knew anything about him. And I got my pronunciation wrong. So I kept calling it. I called him, and I've got this recording. It's a beautiful goal commentary, but I called him Luka Kuka. I think, and then suddenly I see this Romelu Lukaku coming up at Chelsea or wherever it was. Romelu Lukaku, and I thought, oh no. so that memory. But we had because we travelled with the team on that occasion, and we were on the team bus. And we had a police escort through Brussels. So that was an experience. You got all the outriders slowing the traffic down. But we'd driven over, and at the time, very quickly, my sports editor was somebody called James Bond.
Okay.
Now, but if you met him, he is anything but James Bond. He would never be a James Bond. But he'd driven over in his car was a clapped-out, rusty navy blue Peugeot, and because we didn't want to hang around at the training session after doing all the press conference, he decided they allowed him to drive behind the coach in this rusty blue Peugeot, and he's got like 5 outriders all stopping rush hour traffic in Brussels for him to go through. So that's one of the fondest memories. And more recently, they've qualified for the first time this year for the group stage of the UEFA Conference League, or the league phase now, and up against Fiorentina in that first game.
Wow.
And that was, if you grew up as we did in the 90s watching Football Italia on Channel 4 with James Richardson and Gabriele Batistuta and Roberto Baggio and all those kind of players. That was just amazing. And actually, the New Saints kept it at 0-0 up until the 70th minute, and then Fiorentina brought on, I think it was like 80 million euros worth of substitutes to score 2 goals. But they beat the Kazakhstan champions Astana. They've got Djurgårdens and Panathinaikos soon as well. So, it's just it's all the time with TNS. It's like a David versus Goliath, and it's just nice to be following the underdog and the underdog getting to the group stage. So, but look, traveling abroad is nice, but it does bring its challenges as well.
I can imagine. It kind of takes me back to that Nuno era and those early qualifiers against Crusaders and so forth. And for those days again.
Did you go to Bratislava?
No, so the Europa competition, I kept going. I'll make sure I've got the time off work. I'll wait. And the only ticket that I had, which is still in my drawer unused, is a ticket for Wolves to go to Greece. And if you remember, this was when COVID happened. So it was the game that then became behind closed doors. So I booked my accommodation, I got my match ticket, and it was Olympiacos, sorry, wasn't it? We were going to play. And that was, so I missed out on Bratislava and Sevilla. And I was like, no, Greece. I've always wanted to go to Greece, and I was ready to go. And then, we decided not to. And then the world changed and so forth. And what things, I don't know how it could have been different that season. But hopefully there's more to come, and we don't just have mid-table Spanish sides in pre-season. Then we have something a little bit more competitive, maybe. But we'll wait and see. But I think it'd be lovely at some point if we perhaps do another episode on a different tangent to really get into some of your experiences that you have, because I do think they're fascinating. But what we'll do, we'll call it a day for now. Nick, if people want to follow you, is the best place X at Footy Nick? Is that right?
That's the best place. Yeah.
You got in early with that, didn't you? I looked at that earlier to remind myself your tagline. I was like, you've got in there early at Footy Nick and claimed that. So,
as a serious journalist at the time, and I called myself Footy Nick, it's like, but now I'm working mainly in sport. It's lent itself perfectly. So yeah.
No, brilliant. So if you want to follow Nick, his European adventures and his commentary following the man with the cowboy boots in Shrewsbury, which will be an exciting journey, then please do so. If you want to follow us, you know where to find us on all the socials. If you've liked this show, then please tell your friends. We've got plenty more coming up. Thank you everybody for listening. So from myself and Nick, we'll see you soon.